Well, well, well. Gina's here. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
A little nutty in here. I like the fact that you actually are comfortable. Always worry about that.
Oh, it's awesome in here. Are you kidding?
You think?
Yeah. I love it.
I have so many ideas. I don't even know where to go first. So we're just going to weave this all and have a conversation, right?
Let's do it.
So right off the bat, what the fuck are we doing to each other? I don't mean you and me. I'm saying, what are we doing? Why all the strife? Or is it primarily driven by social media and online interaction as opposed to the way we used to maneuver?
You know,
loaded question, I know.
Social media is definitely a blessing and a curse. And I think you've seen it be both for me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I think that actually, you mentioned something earlier that if we can just jump right into, I think it's a really good starting point. You talked about
no rules.
You talked about the conversation around toxic masculinity.
Yes, that's a hot button phrase right now. It
is, and that sort of prompted a lot of the writing that I've done that did go viral or whatever. Mm-hmm. And for me, I don't believe in it. I don't believe that masculinity is toxic. I believe that the absence of masculinity is what's toxic, right? Like masculinity in itself is strong and hot and awesome. And I also believe that there's just as much of an issue with toxic femininity. And that's what we don't talk about.
Of course not.
Right?
Of course not.
And when
men are terrified to say that phrase.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not comfortable for women either. And when I started writing about it,
they don't want to admit that.
I got a lot of hate. Yeah.
I know.
I got a lot of hate, but I stand by it. Because you asked the first question is what the fuck is wrong with us? And that's what I think is wrong with us is we have blurred the lines and strayed so far from who we are as individuals. There's that need to be equal. And I don't believe we are equal. And I believe the fact that we are not equal is what makes the divine union so beautiful. It's what makes men and women so beautiful together. So for me, the whole goal, if there is one, I don't even know if I have a goal, but the whole goal, if there was one, would be to restore the integrity of the relationship between men and women. And not just for myself, although that'd be great, but for my kids, for my clients, because I don't think there's a separation between who you are, how you respond to love, how you behave in relationships, how you behave at work. It's an ecosystem, right? So, the goal was to just start talking about these things. And the more I talked and the more people I met, the amount of pain and trauma and fucked up programming and skewed roles and wrong, incorrect interpretations of things came to light. So it just became a hot topic for me.
So how much of that is willful ignorance of the participants, us humans, and how much of that is the environment we find ourselves maneuvering in, which is the online environment? Does that contribute?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of it is the environment we're living in, which is why it's so important that we become self-aware and that we practice discernment and that we stay in touch with our own intuition and with each other and keep positive conversations going. And, I had a woman leave a comment for me. One of the things I said was, lead yourself so you can lead me. I want a man who can lead, and I have one. And, I set women back 100 years, and
I read that.
Be a cold day in hell before I let a man lead me. And she said to me something like, your sweet femininity is just so you can get attention. And I thought, that's part of the problem. There's this notion for so many women that you have to be angry and you have to be enraged about something. And I just don't believe that. I don't believe that anger has to precede passion. And I believe you can take empowered action from a good place and not a place of bitterness and skepticism. And
okay. Is that a more recent phenomenon that somehow the thought of an angry female, I don't even know what's a female anymore. That's a whole different discussion. but the angry woman is it's more mainstream now. The topic of that or the view of that, right? Is that a recent phenomenon?
I don't know. I don't know if it's recent. I don't know. What I know is that it's with online, with digital media and social media, it's more pervasive than ever. I think the conversation has a chance to be taken out of context, and to be championed by people who maybe have not taken the time to do the work they need to do to get self-aware. And
Right.
I think that's a big problem. I had another woman reach out and say, have you ever heard of the goddess Kali? You have none of her energy. You need to be angry. Like, the women were pissed that I'm not pissed. And it's not that I don't see issues. The patriarchy comes up a lot. Don't you hate the patriarchy, right? And it's not that I don't take issue with things, but I don't believe that blaming men empowers women.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll leave that there.
I sing it, soul sister. I mean, that's. I don't know. There's so many ways to go with this. I concur. I think that there's something natural and beauty with the way life unfolds. And I believe that there's folks maneuvering around in life right now that want to upset the order of things. And order is a tough word to use, the nature of things. They want to upset it just to basically throw a monkey wrench in and cause drama and strife and change. Change for the sake of change is ridiculous. And I think that's part of what's going on there. Like, it's kind of worked for a couple thousand years, because it's the way things are, but it must be wrong in 2022. It must be wrong, and we're going to change it. I don't know. It's a very interesting time we're living in right now.
It is, and I really feel that if we don't come together and have these conversations in a compassionate way, that we will just get more and more fucked up. And I see that because I see women. I have a lot of clients who, I have a relationship coach, so I'm involved in her work, and I see women who I just want a manly man. I want a strong man.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's not popular. It hasn't been popular the last 5 or 6 years. And I think that they're certainly out there, but they are not. And I say they because I don't give a shit personally. That stuff doesn't bother me.
Right.
Because I'm callous, right? I'm callous. But ultimately, I see a lot of manly men and really great men and great human beings that I'm aware of that don't know their footing right now in society.
Exactly. And I've gotten so many messages from men who are confused. They're afraid to say anything. They're afraid to give a compliment.
Yeah. Hold the door.
They're afraid to flirt. And I understand why. And it's because of that threshold we've crossed a little bit into the toxic femininity, where it's don't call me babe, don't call me sweetheart, don't call me beautiful, or you're objectifying me. Like, thank God there are still women who can accept those compliments and who are in touch enough with their own intuition to practice that discernment and understand when it's genuine and when it's disrespectful. There's a huge difference.
Yes. And don't you think when that type of response from a female to a male happens, it's almost like the male is being invalidated, certainly. But the bigger thing is there's a loss of what could be beauty there, like the loss of that exchange. That's just part of the whole thing. The whole thing of how men and women interact in society, not always sexually, but just the niceties of life.
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong with that. I mean, I remember being in the 80s and being a young person to my first job, and I held the door, and I didn't even know what feminism meant. I heard but I knew it was a thing, and I'm not discounting feminism. I'm just saying I had never had any chivalrous act pushed back in my face. I held a door I was a young person in this new world, held the door for this professional businesswoman, and she told me I can get my own doors, thank you. Now, okay, it wasn't even said ultimately mean, it was kind of matter of fact, but I realized this is a different thing, right? So it stung.
But if you didn't,
and it confused me a little bit too.
Exactly, because if you didn't hold the door, then you're not a gentleman.
That was my assumption.
Right. So what is a man to do? And I see that happening in online dating. Now, listen, I'm going to say this because I don't want to, have an inbox full of hate. I get why women are protective of themselves because there is a lot of bullshit
Absolutely.
coming at us. I mean, I wouldn't even repeat some of the messages that I get from men. I'm air quoting that.
Just slide into your DMs, right? Isn't that the phrase?
Right. So of course there are assholes out there saying things they shouldn't say, crossing lines,
Certainly.
being disrespectful. But there are just as many women doing it wrong too. And I think that's the conversation that I wanted to open up is there's good and bad on both sides. And at the end of the day, I'm going to say most, I won't say all, most people want the same thing.
Absolutely.
Love, right? Most people want love and respect and friendship and...
Yeah. We had a guest on the podcast that said a phrase I hadn't heard in a long time, but she said, in her opinion, lonely people are hurt and hurt people hurt others. Lonely people are can be some of the meanest people out there. When you drive down into why someone acts the way they do, oftentimes it's because they're lonely. But I think we're not helping that by creating more division between the genders.
Right.
You know?
And you said something actually on our first phone call that stuck with me. I actually wrote it down. You said something like, before you demonize someone, humanize them. And I think that's something that I've learned to do too, because I'll get a message from somebody that says, beautiful picture. Are you open to a conversation? Well, if I immediately assume they're just hitting on me I lose something. I lose the opportunity to learn something. So sometimes I'll say, hey, thanks. Yeah, what did you have in mind? And a couple of times that has translated into lucrative affiliate business.
Certainly.
For me. So, I've learned how much to lean into it before you can make that decision, before you can decide which way it's going.
Would you think that it might be because some women have a tough time deciphering and they get jaded very quickly when they see a lot of like salacious or negative or offensive things in their inboxes? That again, it's because men are generally not dealing with that like women are. I think that's just a fact.
Sure. But
it takes a level of patience and a little more sophisticated thought into it to do what you just said and realize that you just gotta go at it pragmatically almost to find out what is this really.
Exactly.
But that takes effort.
Well, it takes courage.
It takes courage.
It takes courage.
Yes, let's talk about that. It takes courage.
Yeah, so I think that I just had this conversation. Somebody reached out, strange man on Facebook, said, I saw your post. No disrespect, but are you open to a different interpretation? I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I loved how he approached it, right? So we talked back and forth a little bit. And what we came to is men and women both have lost the courage to be broken. We've lost the courage to take a risk. We are so in protection mode, both. I'm not going to say anything because it might offend you, and I don't want to look like an asshole. Well, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to, I don't know. God, I got to think of a word here.
You can say anything here.
I don't want to lean into this and look like what my teenager calls a pick-me girl, right? Where
I get it.
But you lose something. You lose the magic. You lose the possibility. And of course it's not certain. I could lean into that message and he could be a total prick, but I'm not going to know. And what's that quote? When nothing is certain, anything is possible. And you have to have the courage to explore that to a point. And that point is where you have to be in touch with your intuition, and it tells you keep going or pull back, you know? And I think we've lost a little bit of that too, because there's so much fucking noise. We're influenced by so many things that we have lost the ability to just tune in. How does this feel to me? How does this feel right now? Right? And maybe it feels good now, and then 2 messages later it doesn't. You have to be willing.
I'm sure that happens often.
It does, yeah. And I think you just got to be willing to go there.
So I have run into a little bit of a interesting circumstance when I have reached out to people in my social media sphere, such as yourself, that I have not personally met, but I've seen your work and I've seen others' work, and I see how they maneuver and they do interesting things, or they think in an interesting way. I have to be careful how I reach out to them because I don't want it to be perceived as another guy, reaching out to them with false pretense. And it's a very slippery slope. And there are some ladies in Pittsburgh who do some fantastic things that have not responded back to me. And it just, and I'm not troubled by that, but I wonder if the message looked too much like maybe what they're getting from other people. And I understand that, but it's, just communicating for the purpose of doing a show together can be taken the wrong way. And I don't know really how to fix that. There's no way to really fix that. It's almost like a numbers game. There's 100 you want to approach to do this. Yeah. Hopefully 70 understand the intent it was given, but it's slippery out there.
It is. And I think the work on that end isn't with you. I think it's with women. I think we have to, it's hard, you can't let down the wall altogether, but it should be a fluid wall. I think it should be fluid. You know what I mean? Like those people that aren't responding to you are losing something by making that assumption. And it's unfair to men. And I can say that I'm a mom of 3 kids, two are boys. And I worry about what they will have to navigate. I worried about, God, I don't know if you want to go here, but when Me Too was happening,
yes,
I worried for my boys because for sure, it's a terrible thing that has happened to almost every woman I know at least once, right? We've all been put in a situation that really felt awful. But I also saw a lot of witch hunts. I saw a lot of men shut down because they were so afraid of saying anything that might be misconstrued as falling under that umbrella. And I
think all men are maneuvering now in a different way, though. We are definitely maneuvering in a way that where if you're paying attention and you care about your reputation, if those things are important to you, you have to have your guard changed. In some ways, I think it's good. It's better. Yeah. I think salacious things and degrading things should never have been part of the vernacular anyways. Right. But there's a lot of utter bullshit that goes with that as well.
Well, let me ask you this as a man, like, for sure the men like you who are respectful and doing the work are now more cognizant and more careful. But where's the line? Where have you lost?
We don't know where the line's at.
We don't know where the line's at. So, do you think you've lost something in your communication with women because you are being so careful?
I take less chances unless I really have the relationship, the friendship there to know that, anticipate how things are going to land. And that in some ways, in a small amount of ways, it's probably a good thing. But in most instances, the guardedness robs a lot of joy. Yeah. And I don't know that that's healthy for not just me, but for everybody that's doing the same damn thing. Exactly. And there's a small portion of society that's okay with that. You're warriors. They're, but those are really the whims of a few. When I look at like how we maneuver, and this is more of a global statement, Gina, but we maneuver in this country in 2022, in my observation, that the whims of a few are being imposed on the will of the majority. Exactly. Or the many. Majority is a ridiculous word because it gets misinterpreted. But it's like the whims of a few are being imposed on the will of the many. Yeah. And I see that, and this is an example of that where I don't know. It's probably a small portion of society that really is feeding this toxic masculinity narrative, right? Those who write books about it and get a little success and go on the talk show circuit and all that. It's really kind of like those little points of influence that unfortunately have influence, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like and I'm not saying you and I are going to change that today. I'm just saying I don't often believe that the broad swath of folks in this country believe in toxic masculinity. Do you know what I mean? But we're forced to kind of fucking deal with it. Yeah. And other things too, not just that, but other things that don't make sense. Yeah. And we are losing something. And I was married for 15 years and then divorced, in a relationship for 4, and then suddenly single again. And all the while doing the work. I think I've tried every modality of therapy under the sun, and I'm not afraid to talk about it, because I think it's important. Absolutely.
So one of the things that I talk about is the importance of all of us doing our inner work, right? And it's taken the conversation from toxic masculinity, toxic positivity, toxic spirituality has been.
Oh, wait, we're going to go there.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
is
yeah.
that?
Well,
Toxic spirituality.
I wrote a post about how we all need to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I got,
Of course.
get my messages, get my haters, Eric.
You'll learn to love
Get
them.
my haters. Who said, shame on you.
Of course.
You should love everyone exactly as they are. How dare you need somebody to, it's narcissistic of you to want somebody to change before you will be with them. And I thought, what bullshit.
Wait, what? What was that?
Oh, yeah,
Can you repeat that again?
I was told it was narcissistic of me to want a man to do the work. Because I should just accept and love everyone exactly as they are.
Yeah. Good fucking luck.
Right? I'm like,
good luck.
right. Like, what? I would never teach that to my children.
Right.
But here's the thing. Accept everyone for who they are. Send them love from behind a boundary. But no, you don't have to invite everyone into your life as they are and keep them there and hold them there and deal with their shit. No.
It's a hideous way to live.
It is. But I see so much of it. There's that whole love and light thing that gets misconstrued too. Like, we could have 10 shows here.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get there. Don't worry. We got the rest of our lives. This podcast isn't going anywhere.
Right.
Boy. Is it messaging? Is it come down to messaging and people adopting messages sometimes are not healthy?
I think it comes down to the problem of the more people are saying something, the more it is adopted as truth. Whether we take the time to actually investigate it to see if it's aligned with our own values.
Okay.
If enough people are saying it, it must be true.
Okay. And would you not also agree that the people that adopt that and take it to heart, and whether they should or they shouldn't, that's their business, but they also form their own echo chambers. They want to be associated with quote-unquote like-minded people, so they never hear your opinion until they're confronted with it on a social media post that is going viral. So a lot of people are kind of, it's reaching and landing well with a lot of people, and all of a sudden they're confronted with an opposing view. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to react to it because they're living in an echo chamber of like-minded, fucked up thoughts, right?
Yeah. Well, and they react to it by, it's just, you're wrong. Everything you said is wrong. Right?
Yeah. That's just...
You're wrong. How dare you? Shame on you. Like,
I'm
that's
okay with the wrong part, but that how dare you thing, that's the one that gets me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I made the mistake of referring to women as girls in one of my posts. Oh, my God. Did you know that it's a terrible thing to be a girl? Like, I was... As the mother of a daughter, I was so appalled by that. Like, what kind of message am I sending my daughter if being a girl is horribly offensive?
Right.
I don't care if I'm, if a female. If you look up girl, it says in the dictionary, female.
Well, that's all under debate now, right? That's a whole nother show. Yeah, but 100%. I'm right there with you. And I, as a man, have, in conversations referenced girls, ladies, females as girls, and I occasionally will get accosted. It's usually in good nature, but you can tell there's a point. Okay, and I will say, okay, well, I'm sorry you were offended. It's not really my job to worry about you being offended, right? That's for you to choose to be offended, not me. But okay, but since you projected it to me, okay, all right.
Yeah. Well, and the problem is, again, another show. We are so programmed to be offended that we miss the deeper message. We miss the deeper opportunity for connection.
We're going there. Let's talk about being offended and how that relates between the sexes as well, too. All right. Okay, so I want to know your thoughts on the catchphrase that, why is everybody so offended? Because
shame on you if you're not, right? that's the message that I experienced recently is shame on you for not being offended by being called a girl, and shame on you for not being on the front lines protesting something. You know, like I feel like there's now a fear of being accepting of things just as much as there's a fear of being offended. But like, really, like, it's maddening. I mean, it's enough to drive you insane.
So protesting has become the norm, and if you're not doing a protesting for something, then that's not normal. Whereas protesting used to be not part of the mainstream. It's reversed now. You have to have a cause that uproots your life, and you have to bleed for it every fucking day.
You got to be pissed off. Like, shame on you if you're not pissed off. And that's the message that I kept repeatedly getting is, why aren't you pissed off? Women are pissed off. And I don't believe that, Eric. Like, I don't believe that you have to be enraged to take empowered action. I don't believe you have to be angry to be passionate. Mm-hmm. You know, I believe you can take a stand for a win-win. Whereas we are so programmed now to take a side. That drives me insane. Why can't it be a win-win? Maybe I'm naive. I don't know. Maybe I am.
Moderation.
Yeah.
It's not sexy now.
I guess it's not. No, I mean, you've got to stand for something, and
compromise is not sexy.
No, you're absolutely right. Compromise is definitely not.
Which is the basis of every relationship. Every relationship.
Yeah.
It can't work without compromise.
It can't work without compromise. It can't work without balance. And I believe wholeheartedly, strike me down, it cannot work if men and women are not allowed to, oh God, this is going to go over real well, Eric, stay in their lanes. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is there is a feminine energy and there is a masculine energy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One is not better or worse than the other. They support and empower each other. The presence of the masculine energy allows me to sit in my feminine energy and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And you have to be willing to open up to that. And so many people aren't. So many people think if you're this, then I can't be that. Yeah, I think for me, the most beautiful relationships that I have are when I'm allowing someone to just be exactly who they are. Absolutely. In their energy. I'm not taking offense. And there are times, you know, with my partner now where I'll say, what did you mean by that? Like, I'm not going to jump right away to you were trying to be an asshole. Like, what did you mean by that? And he'll say the same thing. What do you mean, honey? You know, yep. You take a beat and allow somebody to explain themselves and be open to hearing it and be open to learning from it, be open to being changed by it. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not, there are very few things that I'm so staunchly opposed of or in support of that I'm not willing to be talked into something else or educated or changed, you know?
Well, that's being flexible is a word, flexible in your learning and your knowledge and your understanding, open to new things, which folks that are staunchly pissed off and fighting everything, they're not open to anything. Yeah. It's their way or the highway, and if you deviate in one regard, you're not effing good.
Yeah, and it's I won't say it's funny, but I went through, because I'm a little psycho, the people that sent me messages, the women who were saying things like, I would never let a man lead me. And, you know, shame on you and all stuff. I looked through and every one of them was single. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with being single, but
that's my point.
Yeah, but like you say, if you want a manly man, you got to let him be the man. And that doesn't take away from you being the woman. It makes it all the more beautiful. And I just thought that was so interesting, you know, that they were so strong in their convictions and nothing I said could ever change them. And yet, and then when I pointed that out, which I probably shouldn't have done, Eric, I should just learn to keep my mouth shut. But when I pointed that out,
it's an exercise. You'll learn either way.
Yeah, I am happy being single. I choose to be single. I choose, you know, I couldn't win. I couldn't win with him. But There are a lot of people who are perfectly happy single. That's their life path.
Are they really?
I don't know.
mean, is that just a catchforce too?
Well, that's a good question.
I mean, there's probably
Let's get somebody in here.
There's probably some.
Right.
I'm like, because in every group of person, there's always outliers. But ultimately, are they really? I wear it as a badge of honor, and that's another thing we do in this society is we wear our labels like a badge of honor. And you're pissed off, and you're a fire independent woman. You're a man hater. They don't use that term, but essentially, that's kind of what they are. They'll wear it as a badge, and if you don't think that way, there's something wrong with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely consider myself a fiery, independent woman.
No doubt.
And I will absolutely sit in my softness and let my man lead. Mm-hmm. They're not mutually exclusive to me. And I think that's the problem we're having is we are stuck in either or thinking instead of both and. Right?
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. In so many areas in society. Yeah. That we're living in a world of absolutes. Mm-hmm. And life isn't generally absolutes. It's a moderations of things. And but people will die on that hill for their belief, even when they know sometimes they've been proven wrong over and over again, and they know they're wrong. Yeah. But they'll still go on that hill and they'll die with their belief, and that's just a really weird way to live.
It is.
It's not helping anybody.
It's not. It's not helping them either. And I've been so tempted to say, where has that gotten you? The woman who said I needed more rage, I want to be like, where has that gotten you? How has your rage?
They actually said that.
They actually said you have no rage. You have no Kali energy. You have no rage. Where's your rage?
No rage.
I don't really feel the need to be enraged about it. You know what I mean? Like I get upset when I see injustices happening, when
certainly.
see marginalized people suffering. But on a day-to-day basis, I don't need to blame men for it.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
So that, I don't know. But I was tempted to write to her, where has your rage gotten you? Like, list your blessings and tell me how many of them came to you through the rage. Mm-hmm. I'd be very shocked if rage and anger yielded magic and beauty and sacred love. It's not how I roll.
Rage and anger never really accomplished, especially over an extended period of time. I can't imagine that's very healthy.
Right.
I wonder about, when it comes to challenging every aspect of masculinity, when a woman decides to do that and wear it as a label and all this, if they're ultimately looking, but they also would say to you that they are looking, they're single, but they're open to dating, they're open to finding a man and all that, but they want to have all this anger, what they're going to end up with is either never a partner or someone that might buy into the movement that has no masculinity. A guy that's been beaten down, a guy that's susceptible, a guy that wants companionship so bad maybe, and is willing to put up with all of that domineering bullshit. Mm-hmm. But in the end, those guys are few and far between. Yeah. She's probably going to end up single for the rest of her life because she spent most of her dating years hating men. Yeah. That's a real thing.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I think, as a man, it's probably not popular to say that, but I don't care. It's what I flip and see.
Well, and I see the flip side of it, too. I see men who are so tired of... they actually put in their profiles now, please, no picture, no filters. Show me who you really are. If you're just here for money, don't inbox me, right? If you need me to make a certain amount of money, don't inbox me. Like, I think the flip side, men are tired too. Just as much as women, are mad at men. I see a lot of men starting to be angry at women and what they've had to put up with. So now we're just in this great divide. We're in a great divide because, nobody has the courage to lean in. We're too, we're leaning out. So I think it's going both ways, which is just a recipe for a lot of single, lonely people.
What do you see on the business front in the way we're interacting with each other? Because being a realtor, I don't do a lot. The way I'm wired, I don't do a lot of group things. I don't do a lot of networking events. So my interactions with in my business world are kind of like I do here, like 1, 2, 3, 4 people maximum. But what are you observing in the past, let's say the past decade right now, in the way that we're interacting, men and women in the business world? Do you see the bleed over?
Oh, for sure. I just believe it's all one big ecosystem, and I know there has to be bleed over. I actually, at my core of my business is I'm a business consultant, and I act as, fractional creative director, and we do a lot of branding work, a lot of marketing, copywriting, and that kind of thing. But I am also a certified energy healer and a certified life coach and all this shit. And I share that because I think you have to be both to be effective if you're working in my industry, because I will see people trying to launch something.
Okay.
Right. And it's not working. Right. It's not working. And when I really stop looking at the data and I stop looking at the analytics and we go deep, I'm finding out that their personal life is shit. Right. That's not the time to launch a huge, right? So, I really believe that one powers the other, that they work in tandem, that you have to be doing your inner work.
Sure.
I believe that your wealth will grow to the extent that you do. Revenue growth and personal growth happen in tandem. I believe all of that. So I think there's a bigger, better conversation happening around it. I think people are, at least in my industry, which is sort of like life coach, health coach, business coach, that personal growth industry gets it.
Okay.
But I think it's important to anybody in the business world. And I think too that every business has a soul, whether you're selling, I say this,
That's good.
I say this on my website, like
That's good.
It doesn't matter if you're selling real estate, real estate, legal services, or toilets, you have to be willing to go deep.
Uncannily connected in some way.
right.
I can tell you.
But you got to be willing to go deep. And, we saw that happening with Apple, with their gorgeous mission statement like that. People are getting savvier and people want depth and people want connection. And,
Certainly.
One of the questions I'm always asking my client is, what problem do you solve that a Google search can't? Right? Because anybody can look up anything and find an article on Google or a YouTube video or something. So how do you go beyond Google? What are you offering?
Right. That's
right?
heavy. That's heavy.
It's heavy, but it's important. It's how you get to the depth in the relationship.
And I'm guessing there's a lot of business folks that may not want to have that conversation because that requires a lot of introspection.
It does.
I should just hang my shingle and people should just come and buy my thing because they just should.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on. Maybe not so much anymore, but there used to be a lot of that going on.
For sure there is. And there's a lot of, businesses were built on left brain, right? Like it's money, it's logistics, it's data, it's this, it's that. But the most successful people that I know have been willing to make that shift, and they're moving into relationship marketing, and they're having those deeper conversations. Okay,
so let me share this with you, and then maybe this is an example of what you just were referring to. For me, I was the identity of my guitar business for 15 years. Became a realtor midlife. For the first couple of years, I struggled because I needed to find out my identity here. Do I keep this part of my life here and compartmentalize this part of my life and project this as the realty side of me and all this stuff? Real confusing. Had a conversation with someone, and I wish I could tell you who it was. I just can't remember. But the comment was made to me, what would it hurt if you just put yourself out there and you are all these parts? Just tell people, because you're pretty, there's no bullshit with you, Eric. Just put yourself out there and say, look, if I'm not for you, great, but I wish you the best. For those who do dig what I dig or dig me, they're going to get the best of me. Just put yourself out there. Yeah. And I just did that. And I consolidated everything into just one website. These are the elements of this is what I do. This is who I am, the unvarnished look. And I'll tell you what, my practice just took off pretty much on its own. I'm less in that regard, but once I consolidated, Gina, everything and put my unvarnished self out there. And then the podcast came later, but it's all one. I can't compartmentalize. There's not podcast Eric and guitarist Eric and, realtor Eric and dad Eric and husband Eric. You can't do that. It's so authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, that's when it works. And, I talk to my clients a lot about the power of paradox and bringing two seemingly unrelated things together. That's distinction. That's unique selling proposition, right? Like that's
all right, right on.
how you do. Like look at nerd fitness, right? Like those two seemingly unrelated things that blew up. So I think you're spot on. You have to bring it all together.
People are afraid to do that because when I started to do it, a lot of more seasoned realtors told me, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. You've got to keep things separately. You don't want them getting a peek into your." What I said, my real life?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was a mentality out there. At least in realty, it was. Now I'm so unabashedly against that it frightens some of my fellow realtors. But I just be yourself.
Absolutely.
I mean, 100%. Don't hide anything.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and I mean, as you can see, it works, but it does take courage.
Yes, that's the other aspect of it. Yeah, that is the thing. So let's talk about courage for a second. We were talking about interpersonal skills. That's one thing, but if somebody knows that they're being presented something that's wrong, but there's either peer pressure, this goes back to when we were kids, right? Either peer pressure or they keep falling into these bad circumstances. They know the right answer, but it may take a little courage to enact that right answer. I think that's what's happening right now with a lot of this mini group think about, hate men, toxic masculinity. It's like people fall in this stuff because it requires less work just to go with the crowd. Yeah. Less work and less courage.
Yeah.
Am I right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, listen, when the second I hit post on that one, I texted my boyfriend, like, I need to tell me you love me because I'm about to get so much hate. Like, I was terrified, but
you knew it. That's how messed up we are as a society.
Yeah.
It was so obvious that this viewpoint I have, which I believe in with everything I have and has served me well, I'll share that, but I know we're so odd now, I'm going to get vitriol.
I knew it was coming. And then there was flip side too. Like the one post I did, I posted it with a very, I guess for lack of a better word, sexy picture. And the whole point was for it to be a pattern interrupt, right? Like I wanted people to stop.
I got that.
Like look the message, right?
I got that.
And I'm like, oh, my mom's going to see this. My brother's going to see this. Fuck, But I learned, early on from one of my mentors that the message is always in service to something higher than yourself. So, of course, there are going to be people that say, who does she think she is? Of course, there are going to be people that say, shame on her. But I also had a woman send me a message that said, this post saved my life.
Wow.
Yeah, this post saved my life.
Wow.
And I went back and forth with her for a little bit, and I thought, you know what? To hell with my ego, to hell with what people think of me. If that's true, if I wrote something that affected someone that deeply, send the hate. Like, I think you just have to go above yourself,
It is. But we're such a selfish and self-centric life that we're all somewhat kind of leading right now with just the way society's set up. Like do you think we have too much opportunities, whether real or not, to believe that we're more important than we actually are in the scheme of things?
Oh, for sure. That's why I love the ocean. It reminds you of how small and insignificant you really are, right? But I think too, like going back to positive messages that were taken to a toxic point, self-love.
The Oprah crowd.
All for it. I am all for it. But again, it's thrown us into either or thinking.
Okay.
Right? Like,
oh yeah. 100%.
If I'm most important, me time and self-love and self-care. It's not mutually exclusive from loving you. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's been some issues there where self-love has become ego, and those are complete opposites.
Okay, so what about the idea that you give yourself self-love, you give yourself a timeout, you give yourself this and that for you. But the moment folks are out there sharing with the world that they're doing that, it's almost like why the need to share that if it really is about you and you taking the time to go in, as what the Bible says, go into your closet, right? To that me time, right? But then they go share it and they brag about it. Like, it's almost like, I guess I'm so, the messaging part of it is so nuts to me. Like, did things happen if they weren't shared on social media?
Yeah.
Especially things so personal about, if you really are truly taking me time, right?
Yeah.
Should anybody see that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it depends on the intention. Like, if your intention is to be vulnerable, and
Okay.
I'm taking some me time, and here's why.
Okay.
And I'm sharing this because if you're ever in this situation, I really hope you'll take the me time. It was
Got
so
it.
worth it, right? Like, fine.
Okay.
But I really, the things that drive me nuts are the people who say they're private and then post deeply personal, dirty laundry. There's a difference, because there's a difference between, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out here. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I think the people who say things like, I'm taking a break from Facebook.
Just the people to beg them not to leave.
No one gives a shit. No one gives a shit.
Yeah, just like disappear and then come back when you feel like it.
Right. And I did, like, I for 2 weeks, I got busy. I took my son to college. I didn't post anything. Never occurred to me to say anything.
To announce that you're leaving.
No one gives a shit.
Because the world will stop.
Right?
When Gina leaves.
It's so ridiculous. And then when I did come back and post, someone said, oh, we've missed you. I'm like, oh, that's nice. But, like, I would never have occurred to me to say that. And there was a quote my dad sent me a long time ago that said, we wouldn't worry so much about what people thought of us if we knew how seldom they do. Like,
bingo. Yeah.
Right? Like, we're all so wrapped up in our own lives. But
kids struggle with that too, in terms of, like, at the age, we had a podcast on here with Rocco Koza and his 20-year-old and my 21-year-old and father-son podcast, and it was wonderful. Yeah. There was one part that was sad, though, just watching these two early 20 kids, both in college, maneuver the dating life, and how much of their communication with the opposite sex was via Snapchat or whatever, and their fear of being cyberbullied and being made fun of online is like a real thing. And these are two good-looking kids. Like, it isn't like they would struggle meeting anybody, but the way the threat of cyberbullying is like a big thing. Now, it's easy for me as the father to say, oh, if you really knew how little people are actually thinking about you, it's not a big deal. But it is in that arena. And I have to step back and say, well, it doesn't make sense to me, but obviously it's a thing there.
It's terrifying. I wouldn't have survived it. If I was growing up when there was Snapchat and TikTok,
I don't think I would have either.
It's awful. And my teenagers are navigating it too. And to some extent, my 10-year-old, is seeing it. But,
sure.
And then there's all these rules. Like, my daughter will say something like, she'll probably kill me for saying this, but so-and-so only sent a picture of a ceiling. That means they're mad. I'm like, what? It's like, there's this whole language.
Wait, that's a new one to me.
Yeah, apparently. My kids have told me this. If you're Snapchatting someone and you send a whole face, everything is good. If you send a half a face, it's on. If you send a ceiling, you're fucked. Like, you're mad. Everybody's mad. Like, how are we supposed to help our kids learn to be in relation when something that crazy is going on?
Well, that's kind of how men feel, I think, out there in Manu. I mean, I'm glad I'm not in the dating world, because I can tell you I would have a lot of problems, because the niceties that I enjoyed, which is part of the tapestry of my life, and the interactions with females, the dating, forget all the sex, just the courtship, the beauty of the conversations, all of that, the romance of it all. Yeah. That was the most beautiful aspects ever in my life. That would not be as wonderful today in the society that I would have to maneuver in, because I would be afraid that what I was going to do was going to be demeaning to the opposite sex. The simple act of, I used to go on a date, I would pull the chair out, open the napkin up for my date. Like the weirdest things I learned from James Bond when I was a kid. That's where I learned my manners, right? Yeah, just the things you would see. All that stuff is gone now. I'd be afraid to even try it if I was out there now, because, I'm saying this, right?
Yeah.
This is nuts.
It is, and it's sad, because, like, that's something I cherish. I cherish that kind of chivalrous behavior.
Don't you think most women probably would?
I think most women would. I think they would.
The niceties.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, my boyfriend will ask me what I want if we're out to dinner, and then he'll order for me.
Mm-hmm.
There are women who would be so appalled by that. I'm like,
most definitely.
I'm like, thank God for you. I don't want to talk to anyone. Please do, like, I always tell them, I don't want to make any decisions after 4 o'clock. You make all the decisions. Like, I'm done. My brain's fried.
But even that joke will land poorly.
Absolutely.
On a lot of women.
Yeah.
Not a lot. I don't know if it's a lot. Maybe it's not a lot. Maybe it's a small swath of women.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For sure. But it works it works.
I just worry about my children's generation in regards to now the hate mail is gonna come, and I'm fine with it. The traditional roles, and roles is a bad word too, of a male and female in the dating arena, there's what I'm referring to. Mm-hmm. How they both traditionally have interplayed with each other was such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We took it for granted because it was just part of life now. But now you look when it's like being attacked, it's like you're fucking with the beauty of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't they see that? Mm-hmm. Even if your persuasion is, let's say you're a homosexual person, okay, but do you have to fuck with people that you don't understand and relate to? Like, I don't want to fuck with you.
Yeah.
Why fuck with my life?
Yeah.
It's really a bizarre thing.
It really is. It really is. And I think it's a slippery slope. One of the things I told my daughter from the time she was 5, I would say to her, what's one thing Mommy wants you to remember? And she would say, a man is not a plan. And that was very important to me. I don't want her to ever rely financially, emotionally, anything on a man. However, I don't want her to be so closed off that, so it's a slippery slope of teaching that dance. I don't need to be financed. I've done well. However, I love that I love opening up to that. I love, so I think it's a tightrope walk of being independent, taking care of yourself, and knowing that those things and opening up to a man, leading and being a man are not mutually exclusive. Right. And that's something that I'm hoping the more I write, like everything I write for my children. Really, at the end of the day, I want them to come back and learn from it. But that's one of the things that bothers me is how do I teach her to be strong and independent and not reliant without being harsh or being closed off and losing.
Well, it would be easier if society wasn't working against you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. As we are today, in many instances, right? Mm-hmm. It's a maneuver. It's an interesting kind of way that we have to teach moderation and compromise, and even in the broader picture, Gina, reminding our kids what they learned in 2nd grade, which was critical thinking, 2nd level thinking, 3rd level, ingesting, taking a breath, thinking it through for a second. Okay, here's the options. Let's think about what we're going to do. And just learning all that. We know how to do it. They know how to do it. But we're in this media thing where we're reactionary. We get an input, we reaction right away. Mm-hmm. We say and do the dumbest things that really we know we shouldn't, but we're just in this mindset. And that's how I think some of their dating is handled. That's how I think their interactions are handled. It just sucks. And we're no better. Yeah. We're bad. We're setting a bad example for them. There's adults out there acting like they're 10.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. We have gotten to a point where we are reactive instead of proactive. And nobody has the courage to be proactive. So we just wait. We wait for shit to happen and then we react, right?
Man, that's good. That's exactly what's happening.
It is, and it's sad. And it's put us on opposite sides. It's put us at war with each other a little bit. And I actually see that in business happening a lot too.
Okay.
Where we just react. We just, rather than being strategic, rather than being proactive, rather than having good conversations at the outset, we wait and then we react. But I think it's the worst between men and women. It's the worst and happening the most in relationship.
And that's at the core where it's going to cause the most trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, I just never thought ever that the concept of dating, and I never gave it any thought that on its most basic elemental form would ever be something that the world would like fight each other of. Yeah, like it's not really that difficult.
No.
It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why we're making it so damn difficult.
Yeah. I agree 100%. It should be simple. It can be simple.
There's a lot of disingenuous shit though too, because the reason why Me Too is scary is because it's a good, at its core truth, it's absolutely needed and a good movement that we all should embrace.
Yeah.
It's the fact that there's the humans, they lie. And there's a lot of fraud that goes with it. It's the fraudulent part that latches on to movements. I mean, any social change that is true and honest, that is helping society, we would all jump on board. Mm-hmm. It's just how I think it turns into different things, and I think that's where it just becomes ugly.
It does, and you brought up Me Too. I saw an interview with a woman who had accused James Franco of something, and she said in her interview, she admitted that it was consensual, but she felt like she had to do it to get the role or whatever. And I thought to myself, where's her responsibility in that? And I know people are going to take this the wrong way, but I'm going to say it. Like, he didn't force her. She admitted it was consensual. That's a self-worth issue.
100%.
Right? Like, my heart went out to her, not because some sex act happened, and my heart went out to her because she didn't have the self-worth or the intuition or the discernment to walk away from
but you're
something.
Not really allowed to say that anymore, and I definitely can't say it. If I was to repeat what you just said, but I feel that.
Yeah, like I'm sitting here thinking maybe I should have him edit this out, because I don't want people to take that the wrong way. It's sad. It's sad that that she was even in that situation.
Certainly.
That's even something that happens behind closed doors.
Certainly.
However, I hope to God my daughter has enough self-worth to say, fuck you. Yep. I'm out. Like, yep. I don't feel the need to do anything.
I would wish that for every woman.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
yeah.
Do predatory circumstances happen? Yes, every fucking day. But you know what? Life is not fair. Life is not easy, and we want to change. We want to change things where we can in society. But you have to understand, and if you weren't taught that by your parents, I'm sorry.
Right.
But if you're parenting, you need to let people know this is a wonderful world with plenty of opportunities. But the maneuver especially for women, being the fairer sex, and I say that with all the endearment and love. Mm-hmm. There's predatory circumstances there. Yeah. And just you need to be aware, not terrified, not afraid of everything, but you need to be aware of your surroundings, right?
And aware of your gut,
and your gut. Yeah, absolutely.
Your instincts are almost always right. And my heart went out to that woman in that interview, because I thought, wow, this is not about sex. This interview is not about
something else.
It's something much deeper and much more root, right? Like it's something in her core. But yeah, I mean that's where I was like, this is out of control now, because that was a woman who regretted a decision she made, and not to say, I mean, he could be guilty of a million other things, I don't know, but just in that one circumstance, I was like, I don't know.
Is it the lure of money in those circumstances too? Is money like at the core of like most of these ideas to attack each other? You think?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. That's a good question. I had a friend who had a flirtation with someone at work, both into it, but the second it started to not go the way the woman wanted it to, he was reported to HR, and I felt terrible for him, because I think that dilutes the strength of the movement and the importance of the movement, which is vitally important. Like that, something like that actually dilutes it and weakens it.
Yes. So I will tell you, as a man, I understand the trepidation that is felt about today's world as opposed, let's say, the 80s and 90s. Every workplace I was ever in, there was romances everywhere. Yeah. Right? Okay. Yeah. But I don't think, from talking to my friends and so forth, I don't think a lot of men will get involved with anyone they work with in any capacity, because no matter how wonderful it is, the moment it gets bad, there's the chance from a vindictive standpoint that the work angle can be used to hurt them.
Right.
That's a thing.
It is a thing. It's a sad thing. You know, I mean, I think back to some of the jobs I had in my early 20s and, you know, strike me down for saying this, but like, I remember a guy I worked with who was always good for a dirty joke and we laughed. Like, it made the workday so fun and everything. And, you know, there was always a person who was highly offended and he's inappropriate. He never crossed a line. He never, you know, but, again, like that, I probably would have quit earlier if it hadn't been for the fun, you know, we all had having those conversations. But you lose something when you are so quick to be offended, and you lose something when you are so quick to demonize and to assume. And, you know, I think it just circles back to what we were saying earlier, like lean in a little bit. Lean in until your intuition says lean back, you know, and open up.
That whole comedic thing, let's talk about that, because I wouldn't want to be a comedian today.
Oh God!
Of all the things you can do with your life, right?
Yeah.
And I have some comedians that have been on this show. I got a couple of national comedians I know pretty well. They're all in weird places right now, and it's interesting to get their opinion of this cancel movement, because they all kind of have the same vibe, but they all have different angles toward it, right? Your younger ones generally are a little more open to the movement.
Yeah.
You're more seasoned comedians in my the woke movement. Yeah, I still have no idea what that actually means.
I'm not sure I do either.
Well, the comedians in their 40s and above that I've spoken to are really kind of angry about it, because the ship's been capsized on them almost. You know, it's like, and I laugh at this before we even get into the what your thoughts on it. Let me throw one thing out to you. There's a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to woke movement, cancel culture, or just the concept of being offended. And I got into many tiffs. I've said the following statement to multiple people, and it's yielded a couple tiffs, and I'm going to share this with you. Would you let me look at your playlist in your car? What's on your... What do you mean? And then I say, well, be honest with me. I'm going to give you my honest assessment. Tell me, do you have a Dr. Dre record? Do you have an Eminem record? Do you have a Snoop Dogg record? Or do you have... and invariably, it's about a 70% would say, oh, yeah, of course I do. Well, and you play that record on a regular basis, I'm guessing, in your car. And the lyrical content of that stuff is way worse than what you probably just decided to be offended about. So you're enjoying it when it's fucking convenient for you.
Yeah.
But you want to then use it as a weapon to hurt other people. You're a fucking hypocrite.
Yeah.
I don't see it any other way.
Yeah. I feel bad for the comedians. I feel bad for actually anybody right now in the public eye, because you say one thing, even if you said it 25 years ago, even if there's no context around it, you don't have the chance to explain. You're done.
They're trying to.
Yeah.
But are you really done if let me ask you a question. I know it's kind of a broad question. Are you really done if you refuse to be done?
No, you're right. You're right. And I also think that they're the bravest people in the world, because you have to be so sure of who you are. And it actually brings to mind another conversation I had that may or may not fit into this show, but separating the artist from the art. Separating, the person from the work.
Takes sophisticated thought to do that, Gina. We don't think like that anymore.
Well, yeah, like I don't for a second believe that a comedian who says a joke degrading women actually hates women. I've met comedians who have said stuff that I thought was funny, and I know they have a loving, respectful relationship with their wife, and shame on me for not being offended, and how could I laugh at that, and all that stuff. But don't you think we as a society have just started to take ourselves a little too seriously? Come on.
I think that's the essence of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, when we can't laugh anymore, I wanted my sensibilities to be, I hate to use the word offended, but I want my sensibilities to be challenged in my humor. That's what to make things, because I'm not a slapstick guy. Like, guy falls over. Kramer on Seinfeld, he was funny. But I mean,
Yeah.
I want my sensibilities to be challenged.
Yeah.
You know, that was
For
part
sure.
of humor to me.
Well, you can't joke anymore. You can't flirt anymore, right? You can't compliment anymore. You know, like really, like everything that made life and relationships fun and vibrant and exciting, you're just not allowed to do anymore. It's not allowed. Shame on you.
All right. I have a dirty joke in regards to what you just said. I got a friend of mine who said basically the same thing. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't be chivalrous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to say when I'm dating.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to say in public. I don't know how to refer to people because I'm going to mess up their pronouns.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm just going to stay home and masturbate, and I'll just be fine. There's no reason for me to go out. I'm just going to stay home. And I was like,
Yeah.
But I got it. I understood what they were saying. Like they're single and they feel they have no chance.
Mm-hmm. I felt that way
because of the society they're in.
Mm-hmm. I felt that way when my last long-term relationship ended. I said to my friend, I'm like, I'm just going to stop shaving, get more cats, and die alone. And you know what? Fine. It's fine. I'm one cat away from being a cliche, Eric.
The infamous cat lady. Yeah.
Thankfully, I was saved from that. But yeah, I get it. I mean, it is really disheartening. And I did do the online dating thing. Oh my God. That's depressing.
You did? I did too.
It's depressing.
Between my second and my third wife, I did.
Yeah. It's very depressing.
Yeah, and it was depressing for me. This was 2010 and 11 I did it. And it was depressing then. I can't imagine it today. So how long ago was this for you? What years were you out there?
A couple months. I was quickly, thank God.
What year did you start that? Do you remember?
This year. Yeah, like my last long-term relationship ended
okay. So you had okay.
Yeah. And
so do tell, how did that go?
Luckily I met someone.
Yes.
I'm off the market.
Excellent.
But prior to that, the weeks leading up to that, I was dumbfounded by how lonely and jaded everybody is. You get the occasional, I did get one offer for a picture of my feet for $300, and I was like, I'm not hard up, but maybe I'm glad to know that's another option for a revenue stream if I ever need it. but yeah, it was depressing. I actually was like, I'm done. Like I'm canceling everything. This is just depressing. And I did meet someone.
What were the takeaways? Besides the feet and everybody's depressed,
yeah.
What's the trend? Were you seeing trends of behavior?
I don't know if I saw a trend. I think because my writing that started to go viral happened during that time, because what it did was illuminate to me how fucked up we all are.
Yeah, right on.
And I met a lot of men who I felt really bad for, because we always hear about women's trauma, right? Mm-hmm. We hear about what women have had to go through. I think men deserve to have a safe space to talk about that too.
We're not allowed.
You're not allowed. But I met amazing men who definitely were put through the ringer, definitely had trauma, definitely were deceived and betrayed, and both in childhood and in marriages. And, we don't talk about that. Mm-mm. They're probably just an asshole, right? Again, because we don't have the courage to lean in and check it out to a point, right? So that's really what prompted everything that I was writing. Was, my God, how do we get here? How can there be millions of people on Match.com and Bumble and all that shit looking for something at the same time we are pushing it away with everything we've got?
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it was really disarming.
My biggest thing would be today, if I was out there, my biggest problem would be communication in regards to what I'm allowed to say, what I'm allowed to ask, what I'm allowed to. I'd be afraid of making the remedial mistake by not just paying attention enough, or not. I would Whereas like 10 years ago, that wasn't at the forefront. No, believe me, 10 years ago. So my story is that I went on 66 first dates.
Oh, wow. That's a book title.
It's a book. Maybe we'll talk. And I journaled everything, because I journal every day, so I've got everything. Mm-hmm. But it was 66 first dates, and some of those had multiple dates. Okay. Yeah, and then Natalie and I connected, which the funny part was I didn't meet her through this. We grew up in the same town. We reconnected later in life. So it's just, of all that aggravation, I had to go through all that aggravation to find her.
Yeah.
But besides a lot of funny stories, nothing really tawdry, just funny stuff, I met my fair share of man-haters, disguised as women who weren't.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it would reveal itself. Oh, yeah. You would just...
Example.
Dressed to the nines, little flirtatious, the things that they thought, would be endearing to a male, and they went through the thing to the point where it seemed almost on my end too good to be true often, like, they can't do this good, but okay. Mm-hmm. So you asked for the second date. The second date was way more revealing.
Okay.
But never on the first date. Yeah. And I was actually, at that point, I never got mad, but I was more disappointed that I was deceived. And then I started to get a little jaded. Like, I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, that's like drinks and another 3 hours of my life. Do I really want to risk that if I'm not getting the full story? And not that I was naive to believe I would learn it all right away.
Right.
But I just felt like there was a lot of man-hating out there that was being disguised for maybe they thought they had to. Maybe they think they're not man-haters. Do you meet people that are haters of men but don't believe it? If you ask them, well, I think men are wonderful. No, you treat them like shit.
Well, it's because
it's really weird.
We are all in relationships as our child selves. I believe that.
Okay,
I believe we are almost all coming to adulthood from perspectives in childhood that were never healed and never processed. And, I actually was joking with a friend the other day, my friend John, where I said, instead of like the profiles being like, I like to go hiking, I like live music, I want to know, like, do you hate your parents? Right? Do you have unresolved childhood trauma? Can you make a budget? I want to know the stuff that's going to make our connection actually thrive.
The real questions.
The real questions. Yeah. Who do you need to forgive? What do you love about yourself and what do you hate about yourself? What's most likely to trigger you? What could I do that will probably set you off? Like, those are the questions that need to be asked, right? Like, maybe not on the first conversation, but I get there pretty quickly.
I think you need to be on the first conversation.
Yeah, and I find out real quickly who can go deep.
Certainly.
And who is just completely unwilling to. And one of my favorite quotes is, I must be a mermaid. I have no fear of depth and a great fear of shallow living. And that's how I roll. If you can't go deep with me pretty early on,
you don't stand a chance.
No.
Yeah.
No, and it's not because I'm a narcissist, and it's not because everything has to be my way. It's because I've seen how something unravels when we aren't willing to share those things.
Surface level doesn't work.
It doesn't. It becomes a trauma bond, not a relationship.
Trauma bond. I like that.
Yeah. I've actually learned so much.
Coin that one. That's a good one.
I didn't quite. I mean, listen.
That's a good one.
I've been reading so much about it, and it's really interesting.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. What's the essence? What does that mean, a trauma bond?
The trauma bond is coming to the relationship from your unhealed self.
Okay.
Right? But you won't share it because it's shameful or it's embarrassing or the person might run, so you just hide it. But we're intuitive enough that I know something's off, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm not going to ask because I don't want to offend you. And we just go back and forth. And we're completely running the show from fear, from shame, right? Whereas if we can just start from a place of vulnerability.
I love that. Love that.
Right? We would go so much further.
Yeah, and you'd have, and that takes some courage.
It takes balls,
yeah, that takes courage. Balls. Yeah, it takes balls. On my end, it would take balls. Yes. I think, but isn't that a great time saver? Like, I'm all about this point in my life. You're being 56. I we got to find an amount of time here. I don't want to waste time. I would be like, hey, if I wish you nothing but the best, but if we're not right for each other, I want to know, like, up front some of the tells. But I would be afraid to say that almost now in today's society, because that would land well with some folks and they would get pissed off.
I think you have to, and I've learned too that I don't always need a reason. Like, I have super strong intuition. Everything I do is intuitive. Even writing an ad campaign for my clients, it's intuitive, right? So I can tell almost immediately if something is going to work or not work. And I have learned to be comfortable saying, even client relations, saying, this feels out of alignment. I can't give you a reason why. It just feels out of alignment. I wish you the best, and just
good
done.
For you.
Right. And it's hard because
certainly it's hard.
People do get offended and they, how dare you? And
yes, they do.
Right.
I don't know why.
Right. And what a bitch, she didn't even give me a chance. And,
but isn't it better to I think it's better to cut and run at the beginning, even if one side's offended or embarrassed, because it's about time and saving time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in business especially, like, time's everything.
Time is everything. Energy is everything. Alignment is everything. Yeah. And I think there's something too to be said for jumping in with both feet if it feels right, and not saying, but it's only been a couple weeks, right? Like, that's a problem I had to run into. I had to get over my logical self being like, this can't be this great. I just met him, like, no, like, check in. How does it feel? Right. And have the courage to stay in the present moment and not predict every single thing that could go wrong. And I definitely struggled with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, he's so amazing. He seems amazing. He's definitely a serial killer. He's definitely leading a double life. There's no fucking way. There's no way he's this great, right? Like, that's where my head goes because, when you've been screwed over so many times. But
that's your defense mechanism kicking
for sure.
in, right?
Yeah, for sure. But it's also programming, right?
Okay.
Like, we have learned to what's the appropriate amount of time to date someone before you say I love you? What's the appropriate amount of time to date someone before you get married or get engaged?
Who wrote those rules?
Exactly. Find me the book.
I've never seen that rule book. Yeah, I've never seen that rule book. It made things a lot easier if it was a book out there. But
yeah, what's the appropriate time before you sleep with someone, right? Shame on you if it's date 2.
Right.
Good for you if there's a ring. Like, like, where, come on.
Yeah, but there isn't any, and again, I guess that's the thing about life that I only really figured out in midlife, was that there is no effing rule book. Quit acting like or living like there's this pretend rule book out there.
Yeah.
I wish and you say, well, I wish I would have learned that at an earlier age. And that's my mission to any younger person that ever asks me any kind of life advice is like, listen, there is no rule book. Your parents didn't give you one. The neighbor's not going to give you one. No motivational speaker's going to give you one. Unless you're writing your own, which you're probably not. There's no book. So start living like it.
Yeah. Exactly. I think you're spot on. I mean, I taught my son, was going to college and he wasn't sure if he wanted to, wasn't sure he wants to do. And, like, for me, the only rule that I live by and that, I've learned to live by and that I hope my kids live by is to live your truth. To be in tune enough with yourself to know and live and speak and express your truth and to make decisions based on your truth. Because I feel like if you know who you are, what you want, what matters to you, and you can do that, you have a barometer, right? That to measure everything against. This either fits in with my truth and feels good and it's in alignment, or it doesn't, right? And not only that, but you can't outrun your truth. You can stay a few laps ahead of it.
True.
You can stay a few laps ahead of it. You can pretend for a little bit. It will claw its way back to the surface, right? If you stay in denial of your truth, it'll start manifesting in physical symptoms. You'll get exhausted. You'll get sick. That's when in my experience, life falls apart. When you just start getting further and further away from what you know is in alignment.
Is it easier now for folks to live outside of their truths because of social, because of the web? Or
Yeah.
maybe not. Maybe it's all in my head. I don't know. Is it easier today, do you think, to live out of a... Let me ask this question, okay?
Yeah.
And a bigger picture question. Is it easier for us to live out of alignment in today's social world? I don't even know if I should say it that way, Gina, because now some of my younger guests are telling me that there's like the real world and there's the virtual world. And this virtual world now is almost as important, if not more to some people, than the real world. So I'm talking about the real world. For sake of our conversation, I'm talking about the real world.
Yeah.
But playing around in this other one.
Well, you know what's tough is the lines are so blurred now. I don't know that there's a difference.
Ugh,
right?
Terrible.
Like, I love the people who aren't online at all and have no social media, and like they're like my heroes, right?
It's my best friend, Jim.
Really?
Never had it, never wanted it.
Yeah.
Very successful.
Yeah, and honestly, if I didn't do what I do, like if my business didn't have to be online, I probably wouldn't want to be there. You know, it's not, and I get that a lot of good happens. A lot of good
Certainly.
happens.
A lot of good can happen.
Can happen, right, in the right hands with the right intention. But yeah, I think it has given everyone a platform for better or for worse, right? Like, there are people doing amazing things with that platform and people just spreading bullshit and hate and, you know.
It has given a voice to the voiceless, which sounds so fantastic until
Yeah.
you realize that some people were better without having a voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Or we're better off if they didn't have a voice.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the good. So what's great about the internet is equally what's bad about it.
exactly. Yeah.
But again, back to my question, is it easier to live out of alignment today? Let's just say the web wasn't here. Let's just say if 1995 never happened and this thing called the internet didn't proliferate. Were we living... Was it easier to live in alignment or find alignment or be our more authentic and embrace it before the web?
I would say yes, only because we didn't have quite so many people telling us how to be, telling us what was right, telling us how we should think and what we should do and in what timeline and in
Like
what
comparison,
order.
like
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Comparisonitis is like, that's a pandemic in itself, right? Like, so yeah, I don't think people, one of the worst things we do is think about who we are too. Like, I don't know, like that sounds bad, but like, I don't think we thought about it as much. We just we lived our lives and we responded rather than reacted because we didn't have quite so many things being thrown at us and
Right.
telling us what to do. Does that make sense?
100%. We had less inputs,
Yes.
you know, and less.
Yeah.
We also, I think, had less things in our sphere that we considered to be important.
Yes.
Now we think all these different things are important, and they're all kind of out in this virtual thing. Which, are they really important? Are they even valid for that matter? But
Right. Right.
it's more to think about.
It is, and I think we should have just stopped innovating in the 90s when we had like a car phone and dial-up. Like, we were good. We were happy. Like, why didn't we just
I had
stop
a pager.
there?
I sell pagers. It was a great thing. And then my
Right?
kids laugh. A pager? Why would I want to carry a pager around? Well, that's what they had then, kid.
That was enough, Eric. Like, you knew someone was trying to get a hold of you.
Yeah, I'll call them at my leisure.
Exactly. Exactly.
Or if she was hot, I'd call her right away, right? I mean, am I allowed to say that anymore? But I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I just feel bad. I feel like we're getting inundated with all these, constantly being barraged by inputs, and I don't think our brains can handle that term. Monkey brain is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's terrifying.
It is, and that's why it is so vitally important, in my opinion, to do the work you need to do to know yourself, to be honest with yourself, to listen to your inner voice, to define for yourself what alignment feels like.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because you have to be able to hear yourself above the noise and trust yourself above the outside influences.
I think a lot of people are afraid to do that.
Yeah.
There's fear there, I think, for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm. Because what if you're wrong? That's the biggest fear. Like, one of the biggest fears we all have is that we're going to be wrong.
Where did that come from, though? Like, 'cause I don't. I mean, are we more afraid to make a mistake now?
But sure, because it's public.
Oh,
right?
Ouch.
Like, I remember so clearly this fairly public couple in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So in love, right? Posting constant pictures of each other.
I'm gonna figure them out here. You give me a second.
I'll tell you after.
Okay. Okay.
You know, the whole community, this whole city was like watching their wedding planning and all this stuff. And then maybe a month after the marriage, they were abruptly gone, right? Abruptly single. And it was just like, oh my gosh. And I think, and I ran into the woman a few months later. She said, it was so embarrassing. You know, I thought it was forever and all stuff. So of course it's harder now to take a chance because our failures are so public. On
display. Because we choose, well, we're only part of the equation. The other party has to, yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. The landscape is so, that's right. And what's those kids are facing, right? And those kids in the podcast, they were terrified of putting on, I don't want to be put on blast, Dad.
Yeah.
If I'm turned down, I don't want her to make fun of me and put me on blast. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And after you unpack all that, man, it's like, as a 50-plus-year-old guy, I'm like, fuck. Like, terrible.
It is.
And then my logic side goes, what do you give it? Blast. Who cares about that? Well, it is a big thing because I'm not there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We have our own version of that, right? Like
we do have our own version of that bullshit, right? I don't care. Either I'm really callous right now, or I've gotten to that. I've gotten to like, what is that state where they used to say that was it called? When the Big Bang started, there was a state where like right at the beginning point where like nothing mattered, but everything mattered. I just don't care. I just don't. I generally. I mean, granted, I definitely wouldn't want to be shunned, or I wouldn't want some of my worst moments to be like. Broadcast throughout the entire web. No one would want that. But in reality, would it affect me today if it happened the same way it would have affected me 10 years ago? Much different today. I'd get over it relatively pretty quickly. Yeah.
Well, you're lucky. You're lucky. I'm still growing a thick skin.
Kind of different for women, though.
Yeah.
You think?
I mean, I don't know if it's women or just me, like an individual thing, but I have a very thin skin. I had to work.
You?
Oh yeah. Like I get really upset.
See, I would not have thought that.
Well, because you can't let it get to you, but it does. And that's where I call, the people who love me. And like, that. Yeah, I mean, I do. I'm getting better.
Son of a bitch.
I'm getting much better. I'm starting to laugh when I get it. When I get the hater, like now, then I have a goal, Eric. If I get a hater message, my goal is to get them to apologize. Like I will go back and forth and like, let's have a conversation. And thank you for your feedback.
What Joe Rogan says about that, right?
What?
Oh my God, he's the staunchest believer into don't pay any attention to
any
of those people.
I have to get better at that.
But you know what's so funny? It's funny you're saying that because I would never have thought that about you. But Jordan Peterson, who I hold in high regard for his intellect and most of the things he says, he would be the last person you ever think that would be put off or even remotely interested in what anyone would criticize him about on social media. But he was telling Rogan on one of his shows that he was diving in and having these conversations and getting emotionally wrecked over it. I'm like, Jordan Peterson, how could Jordan Peterson, number one, care about some guy in his mother's basement with a Jack Daniels bottle? How could he care about that? But here, he was susceptible to that. And that humanized, that was a wake-up call for me.
Yeah.
Like, you can be aligned in so many ways and I'll be all of these things, but we all kind of react to our I guess impulses differently.
Well, and he went through a little bit of a cancel thing just recently.
But he refused to be.
And that's
JP.
Well, it's hard because we are living in a place where we are so easily defined by our worst moments, or we are so easily broadly with finality defined by one thing that we say.
100%.
Right? And I think that's such bullshit. But I get very emotional. Not just with the haters, but with people who, I got a lot of messages for people who shared very vulnerable stories, painful stories. And I found myself wanting to reply to everyone and getting really sad. I'm like, oh my God, like my heart just broke for people. And
that's tough.
It is tough. But I think to do certain kinds of work, you have to be emotional about it. It has to get to you. Not to a point where it shuts you down, but to a point maybe where it moves you into action, or maybe you learn something and absorb it enough to take it further, take the conversation further.
Okay.
I think I have to stay a little bit vulnerable to that.
That's a lot of emotional work, though.
It's exhausting.
I saw how big those posts became and how far-reaching they went, and then knowing that just it's a math game. So when it's that exposed, there's going to be this much feedback, especially on the topic.
Yeah.
So in a portion that's going to be vitriol. Not going to be very nice. So.
But it also prompted the next one.
Yeah, I
right?
see that. I see that.
So when the hater came in and said, "I can't believe you referred to women as girls," that prompted the next post that was seen by a lot of people. So I had to just sort of, it's not about me. It's not about me. They're not attacking me.
Can do it. Yeah, because the moment you make it about you, the message becomes invalid or at least diluted.
Absolutely. Well, not only that, but it would freaking I'd be in a fetal position, never leaving my. I called my friend. I'm like, I'm a nice person. Why? I swear I'm a nice person. But it's a lot.
You'll learn. You'll learn to leave
and
those
that was
alone.
on the smallest scale. That is on the smallest scale. I can't imagine these people who have millions of people.
Yeah, Rogan won't look at anything. He said in the beginning, when the podcast started taking off, he would look at that stuff, and then after a while, he's like, it just messed me up. It just messed me up in my head. It's and I appreciate all the kind comments, and the ones that have problems, then go get your own podcast and do it your way.
Mm-hmm. No,
that's kind of how I feel now. I mean, let me ask you about two things. Let me ask you about how you, in the real world, the real life, criticism in general.
Mm-hmm.
Have you changed in the way that you deal with it, and how do you deal with it? And are you better or worse than you used to be?
Definitely better.
No, so that's the first thing she said.
So I'm a work in progress. It stings, I'm a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. So I do take criticism to heart. However, I have learned that the more painful thing is to compromise my truth. And it can be a deep thing, or it can be something as simple as, my mom coming up and saying, "I don't like what you did in that room," right? Whatever it is, it's tempting to please the other person. That will have a much more devastating effect in the long run. You've got to stay true to yourself first. And that's what I'm learning. I can accept criticism when it's given with respect and when it's given as feedback.
Okay.
I think we've lost the plot on that. I think we have we've forgotten how to deliver it with the right intention.
You mean the old constructive criticism?
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for that, right? I will take constructive criticism. And actually I did. That's when that's guy I didn't know reached out and said, can I just point something out to you? Sure.
So there was the intent to give constructive criticism.
Well, I think you just said the right word. Constructive criticism is a give. It's not a bash. It's not a take. It's not a punishment. It is a give. I'm giving this to you in the spirit of growth and evolution and connection.
Which is very rare today.
It's very rare. All the good things are rare.
So is it rare because it becomes like a competition to the person giving it, and almost like, I want to prove my point that you're wrong in this way because I need to win this little exchange, or this little intellectual or perceived intellectual argument?
Yeah, I think here's my favorite people, Eric. The people who send you a scathing message and then block you so you can't reply. I love those people. I want to meet them. I want to. This is the sickness in me. Is I want to meet them and take them to lunch and ask about their trauma and
Oh, that's way deep.
How do you do that? How do you so strongly feel about something, but they cannot handle any kind of feedback or conversation about it?
Do you block people online?
No.
You've never blocked anybody?
I won't say I never have. I've blocked some inappropriate stuff. Yeah, a couple messages from men that were just ridiculous.
I can imagine.
Disgusting.
Look at the statistics of it all. How could you not encounter some of those morons?
Yeah.
Because I do block people. I block people when they're attacking other people on my wall. Mm-hmm. If there's a thread that might have made them feel a certain way, And if they're just spouting their opinion and they're not really directing like vitriol at anyone there, in particular, I'll let them go. But if they're going to pick out people and start tearing them apart on my wall, it's a judgment call.
Sure.
I don't even talk to them. I don't, they're gone. And I realized it's so freaking empowering. And ultimately, here's another thing I do. I'd be interested to get your opinion on. My life has become better, Gina, because I have still maintained the friendship on Facebook generally, but there's that unfollow thing. Like you dive down, they just disappear off your feed.
Yeah.
Completely. And they don't know that you've unfollowed them. So the friendship is, for whatever that's worth in social currency, nothing to me. But it's there. You haven't offended anybody. But you don't see them anymore. And a fascinating thing happened a couple years ago when I started doing this. I realized my life went on.
Yeah. And so did theirs.
And theirs did too. And life was kind of nicer without seeing their drama and stuff, Sure. And it was a non-offending way because they really didn't know I did it. And I started recommending this to all people. Now, once in a while, if there's people that have egreged you in some way, and I've had I had a real estate broker who did a lot of us dirty and just not good people.
Yeah.
So I just blocked them because I really didn't care if they saw it or not. And it's amazing how it's wonderful not to have to be revisited in my feed by that stuff, because I'm worried about my quality of life.
Absolutely.
So that's the only, in terms of that's how I use the block feature.
Yeah, and I think too, I've gotten better at making sure my quality of life is a priority and not having to justify that.
Yeah.
So do you want to know one of the big moments where I was like, oh, I've grown, right?
Okay.
I got an Evite. And instead of writing a paragraph as to why I couldn't attend, I just hit the no box. Click the no box. I'm like, oh my God. That's so empowering. Just no.
I went to the same thing.
Right?
I went through the same thing, and I remember the first time doing it. Am I allowed to do this?
Right.
I said, am I allowed to just say no?
Right.
Without explaining myself?
Yeah. Yeah. And even you're invited to dinner, you're going out to dinner with the girls, and I'm like, God, it's raining. And I just gotten good at just being like, you know what? I love you, but you're not going to get the best version of me tonight. I'm exhausted. I'll catch you next time. And the old me would never have done that. I would have I would have forced myself to go and been unhappy the whole time and not been engaging.
It's my life.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not much of a mingler anymore. I think that's because I didn't have the courage probably to create boundaries and be decisive when it didn't serve me. Or when it did serve me. Yeah, that was. Yeah, you can just say no. I've learned it now, but now I don't have the desire to go out as much anymore. I wonder. I'd like to get your thoughts. I wonder, am I being antisocial, or am I at the point now where I'm not? I should be more open to more mingling, I guess. Something turned on well before the pandemic, right? Probably in 2018, probably around the start of this podcast. I lost that spark of just being in either the center of attention in conversations or the gregarious one, or trying to be, to work the room. I was good at it.
Yeah.
Didn't know if I liked it, but I was good at it.
Yeah.
I could give two shits about that anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm the same way. And I think, and it sounds like morbid, but I think you become more protective of your time the older you get and realize you have less of it.
Okay.
And, I used to have a magazine and we were out every night.
I bet.
Now I want no part of that. And I actually said, when I was doing the whole dating thing, I want someone to be boring with. I want someone to do nothing with. If you can just sit on my couch, great. We will work.
We earned that though, didn't we?
Did.
Right? That's a thing. You earn. It's like you earn. We have to earn the ability to be simple. Right?
Yeah. To be simple and to be discerning. And to say no and to protect our time and our energy.
Yes.
Yeah, protecting energy is huge for me.
What do you mean exactly? What does that mean?
if I know someone's a pain in the ass to work with, but the money's really good, I will always protect my energy over getting the paycheck, right?
Did you evolve to that decision, or were you always
for
that
sure.
way?
No,
Okay.
it's definitely an evolution. And
Okay.
volunteering at the school. For sure, God bless the people who can do it. I don't have the time or the bandwidth or the desire to be at the school all day, so I'm going to protect my energy and really, it's not selfish.
But isn't that sometimes just a big social thing and the drama that
Well,
comes with all
it
that
can
shit?
be. It can be. But the flip side of it, too, is if I'm protecting my energy, I'm also protecting yours. Because the last thing you want is me in your space, pissed off and bitter and resentful that I'm there. And right? So
I love that.
It's
I
a
love
win-win.
that. I love that. That's a good way of turning it around.
It's
Okay,
for
I think-
you, really.
I think, yeah. Did you ever sell cars? Okay, so let's. I want to wrap this up with one more deep dive. This is going to be an interesting response because I don't know how you're going to respond to this. I think, based upon our conversation, I think I know how you may go, but I could be surprised.
Okay.
Do you remember in the early 2000s, or maybe the mid 2000s, there was a movement, which was really just a regurgitated movement of Napoleon Hill, to be honest with you, but it was exacerbated by Oprah, and it went in conjunction with, I think, a infomercial style movie called The Gift.
The Gift. Okay. I thought you were going to say The Secret. You surprised me.
No,
Okay.
that is, I am wrong. It is The Secret. It is
Okay.
The Secret.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to do the bad interviewer thing, and I'm going to give you my take on it first.
Okay.
Right? Because I want you to know where I'm at with this before you come at me here. Because we may
Yeah.
disagree. I think that is the biggest bunch of fucking bullshit ever perpetrated on the American conscience when it comes to energizing or enlightening people, or in the effort of the guise of helping others. Because to me, there's no magic for sake of magic. There's magic that happens through effort and determination and using drive and foresight and creativity. All that's true. But magic for the sake of magic, wishing upon a star but taking no action, is the worst thing you could ever tell anyone. If you want a better life, but you sit on the couch all day and pray to whatever God you have, you're taking a big risk and not a fucking thing's going to happen to you. And that's all I could see coming out of that movement. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, esoteric belief and all that is great. Magic can happen, but you have to take action. I didn't see any of that in that movie. And that's why I just can't. I move toward things I think about, you're damn right, because I'm actually doing stuff to get to that location. So it's a disconnect from me. How did you, when you first saw that movie, what did you think? What did you think of the quote-unquote movement, if there really was one? And what's your thoughts on it?
So I think the positive part of that movement is the conversation it started, and
What do you mean?
the idea that people suddenly became aware that they can be empowered, that they don't have to accept their circumstances, that things can change. I absolutely believe in a higher power.
Yeah.
It's not the higher power I was raised to believe in, but I believe in an energy. I believe in synchronicity. I believe in universal law. But I think you're right in the sense that it taught people, if I just believe hard enough and don't do anything else, I can manifest.
The word.
Which I agree is not going to happen. But here's the real problem I had with that whole movement. I have a real problem with think positively. I have a big problem with that. The whole change your thoughts, change your life is a slippery slope, because it's true. You do have to, but you can think positively. And people are still going to die. Shit is still going to happen. And then what? It's your fault? You brought this on. You manifested it. You must have been thinking about it. Like, talk about a slap in the face, disempowering bullshit. Like,
confusing.
It's so confusing. And so I wrote a whole thing called The Miracle Project that I'm actually thinking of revamping. It was years ago. I had about 2,000 women go through it, and it was great. And one of the things we taught in it was not positive thinking, but positive processing.
Okay.
And that has changed my life, because positive thinking says something good will happen, which we all know it might not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Positive processing says something good is happening all the time, no matter what. It might take time for me to figure out, right? So like one of the things I try to teach my kids, and the things I recommit to every day, is everything that happens for me, not to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. That asks a lot of you.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt.
And I am not infallible with it. Something happens, and for a week, 2, 3, it happened to me, and I feel it, right? But I go into discovery mode, investigation mode, right? Diagnostic mode, where I'm like, okay, if this happened for me, come up with one thing that could be positive. And it's hard, but I always do it. I can always come up with one possible gift in it. And sometimes it's the tiniest thing, right? But I think that messed with a lot of people too. Well, you must just not be thinking positively. Shame on you.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it all wrong. You're just doing life wrong. You suck, right? You manifested all this crap into your life. That's hard, because unfair, terrible things happen to really great people who seem to be doing all the right things, quote unquote, but that's why I just really think it's important to find a way to process things in a way that serves you and your greater good and your higher path. And it takes time and it takes commitment, but
see, I like that, because you're actually giving the mechanics on how to do it, as opposed to just saying, well, if you think positively, things are going to happen. Well, we know that doesn't really work. But at the same time, how can I incorporate positivity in my outlook based upon the inputs that I'm getting, right?
Yeah.
And how they're affecting my life.
Sure. And it's hard. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, this is
Especially when
easy.
you get
I'm
a
so
speeding
good at it.
ticket. You're like, this is like, really, how's this helping me here?
So, like, for me, when that happens, I'm like, I got pulled over. It delayed me. Maybe if I was further ahead, there would have been an accident.
You
or maybe
need to write film plays. That's what they call real creative writing.
Well, I think you have to. You have to get creative, and you have to take everything that happens as though you've chosen it, right? If there was some
that's
part
a title
of
shift for a lot of us.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. But I can tell you, if I had to point to the single most influential shift
Really?
I've ever made in my life, it is that, for
Okay.
Sure. I mean, God, after divorce, and my ex-husband and I could hate each other. We don't, because we chose to not, because we chose to find those little things that are for the greater, and no matter what I've been through, I try to do that. I try to find out, like, if I chose this because it was the best thing for me,
right,
what does that look like? How could this be the best thing for me? Yeah. And people hate that. They don't want to hear that, Eric.
Well, it takes work.
It takes a lot of work.
That takes work. But I think I think anything that takes work today is a problem for most humans. Just say mental work. I think we'll actually give physical labor before we even give mental labor, which is nuts to me. But I think that's what we're willing to do.
Yeah.
But it's a title shift on how you're going to view. Your paradigm needs to be changed.
Well, and here's the thing. People don't like to do it because it puts some responsibility on them. I'd rather just blame the people who did the thing to me.
It's easier.
It's easier to blame the economy or the other person, or right. So, but it's so unproductive, right? If I can just take a beat and say, okay, this should have happened, right? If it was happening for me, if I chose it, how can I shift this? And it does. I mean, it takes a level of responsibility and of disarming self-awareness that a lot of people just aren't willing to dive into.
You familiar with Jim Rohn? Yeah, Jim Rohn was a big influence on me, and I came to him naturally in my early 20s. I don't know why. I just gravitated and became kind of not a disciple, but certainly a big fan of Jim. But that whole personal responsibility thing, and that everything that happens to you, for the most part, if you didn't choose it, you kind of put yourself in a place that, it happened to you. So you have something to do with what happens, and you are in this world where you want to be. You can say you're not, it's not where you want to be, but you kind of do because you're there.
Yeah.
You know, and that really required you to be humble enough to understand, hey, you know what, I got to take ownership here because that's a big thing. But that is such a hard concept, especially when things aren't going well.
Yeah. Yeah.
For anybody.
Which I almost always believe is a denial of your own truth. Right? So one of the things, when someone comes to me and tells me they're exhausted, I say, what are you denying? Right? When someone comes to me and tells me they're miserable, one of the first questions I ask is, if the God of you believe in was sitting in your kitchen and gave you permission, what would you do? Right? Because a lot of times we say I don't know what to do, and that's so disempowering. We know what to do. What we don't know is if we're ready to deal with the consequences of that decision, right?
Bingo.
So, yeah, and you're always one decision away from an entirely new life. One decision, right?
So true.
Right. So, you know, I've gotten into so many crazy deep discussions about parallel universes and what they really are. And like, sometimes it is just a decision. One way, like, all the possibilities exist, and how you decide in the moment, you know, gets you down the path. But it puts a lot of the responsibility on us, you know. So
I sit down with Dr. Patrick Cooper, theoretical physicist from Duquesne University, and we talk about the science aspect of all that. But you said parallel universes. So do you believe that, it's a little esoterical, but do you believe that everything that has happened before is there, and everything that it will ever happen is there, and we are now moving through it, and every decision we make is the decision to go into a different plane until the next decision? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. It totally does. And
is that what you believe?
I think I do. And, you know, I've had Akashic record readings, and, you know, I've done all that, and enough to have been really floored by some of the theories and perspectives on it. And I won't even pretend to be educated enough in that department to speak to it articulately, but I'm open to believing in all of that, because so far nothing has proven, you know, I haven't seen any evidence otherwise, but, yeah. And I think you don't even have to go woo woo and esoteric about it. Every decision you make is a new reality, moment to moment. And I told my son that when he was going off to college. I'm like, look, nothing is irreversible. Go do that. And then when you're done doing that, make a different decision and go do that.
That's great advice, yeah. Especially at that age. That's great advice.
Yeah, yeah.
So Oprah was just full of shit. That's her answer. Oprah was full of shit. No, I mean, you're in your world, you must see a lot of bullshit. Am I right to say that?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, but the fact that people are searching constantly, they want to be told the answer, right? We're searching for someone to tell us the way. Do you think that makes us entirely too susceptible as a species now?
It does. And you know, when I first started my business, I knew how to do that. And I always say, like, you know, if you ever bought something, you know, an ebook or whatever, like, I'm so sorry, because I probably wrote it. I probably sold it to you. And now, like, one of my commitments is, like, no manipulative marketing. Like, I won't do it. And I don't think it's necessary. I don't think you have to. I think it's disrespectful.
It's kind of disingenuous to a degree.
Yeah. And it doesn't, it's not the way. It's not the only way.
Right.
But I see a lot of that. And I won't even go near those people. I see people teaching sales teams how to overcome objections, right?
Yes.
Important to some degree.
Yes.
But, you know, there's a whole school of thought and a whole script for what happens if somebody says, I need to talk to my spouse about this before making this decision. How do you get them to not talk to their spouse? I'm like, what the, you know, come on. Right?
That's every sales training I ever encountered in the 80s and 90s for sure.
Yeah. So that's the bullshit that I will not be a part of. I can't sleep at night.
To me, it's not ethical.
It's completely unethical, right?
You know?
Yeah. And especially at a time when people are searching, I believe there is a way to deliver the transformation people are seeking.
Okay.
From a place of integrity, And I believe the transformation is stronger because of it. And I believe the lifetime value of the client
certainly
grows with that. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons I keep a foot in each boat with personal development over here and business and marketing over here, is because it saves us from, that kind of manipulative marketing that.
Oh, it keeps you on course too.
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have fun?
I did. I had a great time.
You can do this again?
Absolutely.
You promise. You're on camera admitting it. You're gonna.
I will be back if you will have me.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And how can folks reach you? There's
Gosh.
a million ways. You can't find her. You're not looking very hard. But
I have to. Oh God, I'm terrible. So my website is www.ginahussar.com. It's HUSSAR. I'm on social media, but I pay very little attention to my website. So now I'm.
Why do people say that anymore? Like I just went and spent I just redid ericmckenna.com and last year paid a healthy amount of money. I love the website. It's doing well. I think it's doing well statistically, but no one pays attention to sites anymore. No,
and I'm very lucky. I've never had to advertise. I've never had to run an ad.
Right.
Everything was on referral.
Right.
For 10 years, I built this company on referral. So yeah, I'm really good at it for other people, but I haven't had to do it for myself. But yeah.
We're all in the social sphere now.
Yeah.
Sphere.
Exactly.
I can't thank you enough. This means the world to me.
Thank you. Yeah. It was so fun. I love you, and I love what you're doing here. So
we're having fun.
Yeah, bring me back.
Oh, there's no doubt. I got ideas. We'll talk. All right, friends. We are out.